Hello there, and welcome to another video on the GDG Cloud Singapore YouTube channel. So this time we'll be covering on another topic, which is the retrieving of data from Google Spreadsheet. So in this case, I'll be covering from the perspective of you as a R programmer and trying to get some data from a sample spreadsheet. So before we get started, let's quickly go through the code. As you can see here, the code is pretty simple. At the top, it's just importing some essential libraries. There are two libraries here. One is the HTTP UV library. That is more of a needed for a smoother experience when trying to do Google authentication when using R. And another library, Google Sheets 4, which is I believe the more updated version of the Google Spreadsheets R libraries. There are a couple of them. This seems to be the one that fits the best in this scenario. So if you had to go to our usual way, we just use this authentication method, and then after that we'll try to access the sheet. So once we access the sheet, we'll just check that the column, the one of the columns, which is the test column, all the values in that column is positive, and if there is any negative values, the script will just stop there, which is this section here, which is the section from line 16 to 18. There's that check, and then after that, line 22, 23 would be to manipulate the values, and then it will then write those changes back into the Google Spreadsheet. So you'll eventually see once we run this code. So before I run the script, let me quickly show what the data is going to look like. So this is how the data is going to look like. So as mentioned earlier, the test column will be checking whether any of those values are negative, which in this case none of them are. And then the final step in that script would be to multiply by 2 for all the values in the, I believe, in the test column, and then write those values back into this Google Spreadsheet. So there's nothing much to it. So let's go back to the script, and then after that, let's run this script. Okay, so what we have here, there's a script as talked about earlier. So we'll just run the source button, and then that will allow us to, it will require us to log in to our Google account, and then after that we will need to authenticate and authorize this. It's a pretty simple process, and then once we're done with that, you'll notice that our script is finished running. Then you can see that our data, as you can see here, it has been updated accordingly. So that's mostly what the script is about. So let me adjust it back to its original values, and then if I rerun the script once more just to show this case, see the values have been updated accordingly, and that's kind of how this script will be run. And this is using the usual way of how we authenticate things. So in most cases, trying to do this with this flow works well if we have a desktop or something and a browser. So, and we can do this whole authentication flow interactively. But in many cases, let's say if we want to run this script maybe every week or some sort, and have it not rely on a desktop computer, maybe we can put that script to a server. this workflow won't work as well. As you can see, that authentication step kind of requires the browser. If we throw this script into a server, that wouldn't fly as well. That wouldn't work as well. I mean, we can do the initial authentication setup, yes, but that's the thing. Like each time we move a server, we have to do that manual authentication setup. What I didn't show earlier was let's say if you were to run it in a non-interactive environment, what it will require us to do would be it will try to log in and it will realize that maybe there's no browser available for use in the environment. So instead, it will provide some sort of link which will pass back to you, the user, and then you have to copy and paste that link into a browser to retrieve some sort of verification code which you can pass back to the script for it to continue running. So yeah, the whole process, if you are not using this the usual way, just using just or for off, just as it is, it doesn't work well if you are to run it in a non-interactive manner. So how do we solve this? So one way you can do this is to utilize a service account from Google Cloud. As you know, if you're trying to extract some data from Google Spreadsheets, essentially we can create some sort of service account, and then we can use that service account to you can provide access to that service account, and then that will allow us to retrieve the data from Google Spreadsheet. So that's what we're gonna do here. So to create that service account, we'll need to go to Google Cloud Platform, the credentials section, and then after that we need to create the credentials. So in this case, we just create service account. In this case, let me do test Google Spreadsheet, and then after that we just create. We don't exactly need to have any special access. We don't need to grant it any access to any other capability. So we can see that it's not yet ready, so I'll need to refresh the page. And then once we refresh the page, we will have our service account there. And then after that, what we'll need to do would be to generate some sort of service account key that we can use to provide to our script, which we will then use it to authenticate to Google, and in order to have some access to retrieve the data from the Google Spreadsheet. So with this download step, we downloaded the JSON key, which we can then pass to the script. So what I'll need to do here would be to copy that credential file, that JSON credentials file. Copy that file to the current working directory, and that name of the file will be the project name, then appended to some sort of hash. So once we copy that, let me quickly show what's the insights of this credential file. So it contains all the required credentials here, some keys and stuff, some URLs as well. But we don't need to be too concerned about that. All we need to do is to pass this JSON key to the script that we want to use. So let me comment out this line here, which is the interactive mode, and then maybe then use this same method, but instead we use the path parameter and provide the JSON key path. This is the important step now, which is to take and copy that client email address, go to the spreadsheet that you want to retrieve the address, the data from, and make sure to share it with it. So with that, that will provide access to that service account to be able to access the data from that spreadsheet. So now if we were to have that, we can then just proceed on to run the whole script. And it will look similar to as the previous run cases, but yeah, in this case we are actually using a service account. So with that, this trick can essentially be used for almost all programming languages. So even if you are using like another language like maybe Golang or maybe Python, those programming languages don't exactly have libraries that provide some sort of interactive mode for you to easily retrieve the data. So most of the time what we will need to do is to use that service account method, and in order to get that working, you need to do that steps of those steps of sharing, of getting that email address from that service account, and then sharing it, and then have that spreadsheet share access to that email address. So yeah, that's it. Hope this is useful for you.